The University of Botswana Model of United Nations and Botswana Council of Churches were part of the convoy that moved across the African continent, raising awareness about climate change and its effects. The campaign, held under the theme "We Have Faith, Act Now for Climate Justice," was aimed at sensitizing people about the effects of climate change and also allowing them to share ideas on what could be done to address its impacts. On their way to Durban, the canvas passed through Botswana, where they were joined by the Botswana Council of Churches and the University of Botswana Model for United Nations.
This caravan, as you know, has started from Nairobi. It went through Kenya, Tanzania, Malawi, now Zambia. We are crossing now Botswana, and soon we'll be in South Africa in Durban. And the message we have is, number one, is people should get awareness why climate change is very important. It's impacting people's life, it's impacting environment, it's impacting all our economies, especially impacting Africa. And therefore, the Africans have to be quite aware. What is this? Why it's happened? What can be done to rectify it?
The convoy came through Kazungula Ferry, which is a gateway between countries of Botswana and Zambia.
This is just to welcome the caravanners, a big welcome to them. They've done a great job. They've been on the road for a long time, but I hope they have enjoyed, and I can promise you that there's a lot more to come. So welcome and good job. We have faith. Act now for climate justice.
As part of the We Have Faith campaign, the youth caravan was spreading the message that faith communities should come together for climate justice.
I want the world to know that the realities of climate change and global warming in Africa are very real. And that is why we are advocating that, the biggest polluters, they should finance African adaptation and mitigation programs for climate change. But I'm not only concentrating on this issue of, finances that should come. I'm also concentrating on the issue of sensitizing the people.
The campaign was also aiming at addressing issues of mitigation, adaptation, and technology transfer in reducing the emission of greenhouse gases.
The other thing is that when we reach in Durban also, there are the government delegates coming for this negotiation of the COP17, and we want them to be very serious about this. This is an issue of next generation, not only now. And so that they would come with a very solid, useful program that deals with the issue of mitigation, that is cutting the carbon emissions. Number two is adaptation. How do we now respond to the impact of climate change where we are? And there are other issues like technology transfer, financing of it, capacity building, and we want them to be very progressive, dedicated, and to do what they could do to make things happen.
African youth and leaders were urged to actively participate in this campaign for the benefit of the future generation.
Youths are a driving force behind Africa's economy, and they should be very active in this fight against climate change so that they can preserve the environment and climate, not only for us but for future generations as well. I think a lot of negotiations have to go on the table. I think the biggest polluters have to be really convinced, but I have faith that in spite of all the difficulties, at the end we will win. We will get something. We will get a deal that will help reduce carbon cuts, and we will get more finances for African countries. And there's something I also want to say about finances for African countries. African countries should not only ask for finances, but they should ensure that there are modalities and measures that are put in place, that these finances that are going to be received will be transparently used so that the people that really suffer the effects of climate change can benefit at the end.
The caravans came from Kazungula to Gaborone, where they were joined by other non-government organizations and delegates from Botswana. The march to the city began from the outskirts of Gaborone, particularly near a small village called Rases. The caravans were escorted by a group of cyclists and the police to the 3 Dikgosi monuments. This is where the welcoming ceremony was scheduled to take place. participants held their banners high and greeted people as they passed by. The organizers made the welcoming remarks, highlighting that the African continent is mostly vulnerable to climate change.
Here in Botswana, we feel that we will have a great and successful campaign as well, where we'll also ask the masses of Botswana to join us through this campaign. And basically, we are all looking forward to COP17 because we believe that these negotiations, we have actually faith that these negotiations will help us and they will produce legally binding. We're looking for a legally binding agreement that is for the second commitment period of the Kyoto Protocol. We're also looking at countries to be there, all the countries, including developed and developing nations, so that they can come together and for them to set targets, both long-term and short-term targets for reducing their carbon emissions and to keep the temperature at 1.5 degrees or below. And thirdly, we're looking for adequate finance for adaptation, especially in Africa, as we know that we are vulnerable to the effects of climate change. And the We Have Faith campaign, as it moves through Botswana and going to South Africa, these are the main key demands that we're looking for, and we believe that the Botswana team and the Botswana people will help us achieve this goal, because we believe that COP17 is one of the things that is going to influence issues of climate change not only in Africa but across the globe, and will eventually affect us as youth, as leaders of tomorrow, today, and we are the ones who are going to inherit the earth at all. In a nutshell, I'd like to urge all leaders from Botswana, leaders from Malawi, leaders from Tanzania, leaders from Norway, leaders from all countries to please participate in the COP17 negotiations process, because it is very important for us youth and all the world at large in terms of climate change and in climate justice. We have faith.
Botswana has also not been spared from the effects of climate change. Civil societies and NGOs were urged to bring about change in addressing the issues of climate change in Africa.
Botswana is extremely vulnerable to climate change, and global warming is becoming more and more evident, and local examples that we should all know are the recent heat waves and varied patterns of rainfall, which have adversely impacted national sustainable development efforts as water resources become more scarce, and desertification has intensified, putting strains on food and water security, ecological biodiversity, and the efforts to eliminate poverty, to name just a few examples of climate change. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, there is an urgent need for African youth to support civil society, to put pressure on governments to save the Kyoto Protocol at COP17.
Climate change is here and it's real. And therefore, we have to act now, isn't it? And it's time for us to call our governments to take responsibility, to commit themselves to doing something to assist, most especially communities that are seriously affected by climate change. As we go to Durban together, and as we leave Botswana on Monday and call other communities, as we go through South Africa, invite many other communities to go to Durban to make sure we fill up the Kings Park Stadium on Sunday. Let's go there with one thing in mind. Civil society, the churches, NGOs, and everybody included, remember this. We are never too small, too weak to make a difference.
A few days later, the participants left South Africa for the Durban COP17.